These guys specialize in a lot of Japanese 90s, old school, new school, and everything in between. If you are new to the hobby and wanting to find out what all the different brands specialize in, I'm going to briefly break down the differences between all the different most common 64 scale collector grade model cars. So buckle up and let's get going now. If you've been looking for a trusted source in the States for collector grade model cars, check out www.modelcarshouston.com. Today, we have a total of 7 brands to break down. I'll go ahead and introduce those brands, and then we can dive into the small little details that makes each and every one different. Starting off, we have Inno64, Ignition Model, Tarmac Works, TomyTec, Hobby Japan, One Model, and Peako Model. Let's go through one by one as to what makes each and every one unique. Inno64, super exciting brand. They've been coming out with some pretty amazing things, known for their aftermarket setups, no good racing livery type setups, and they even do OE setups. Price ranges are anywhere between 20 to 25 bucks. Sometimes they come with an extra set of wheels, as you can see right here, and those pertain to more of the OEM setups where they do include that, but the aftermarket ones don't come with that because they're already coming equipped with some pretty nice little accessories and goodies, so no need for extras. They're all die cast. Sometimes they've also been incorporating figures and small little accessories. They do mainly imports, but I have seen a couple of Euro variants as well, such as BMWs. Inno64 is definitely an awesome brand to look into if you're looking for aftermarket, import, JDM, and OE setups. Next in the roster, we have Ignition Model, probably one of my favorite brands overall since the beginning of my collector grade journey. They mainly specialize in aftermarket setups. As you can see, they'll take regular, everyday JDM classic cars, beef them up with the different aftermarket performance companies, or they'll put spoilers, side skirts, bumpers, and wheels on them. But they're all tastefully modified. They do a lot of cars that exist in real life as well. A lot of Japanese classic 90s type vehicles, and recently they've been adding a lot of resin model cars to the lineup as well. Ignition Model stepping their game up for higher quality, more detailed 64 scale model cars. Their price ranges are typically around the $40 to $45 mark. A little bit of branding, a little bit of licensing, and everything in between that makes it come out to that. If you're looking for JDM 90s style with tastefully modified aftermarket bits, then Ignition Model is going to be your answer. Next up, we have Tarmac Works. Tarmac Works, 64 scale diecast products. They specialize in a lot of OEM setups, aftermarket setups, a lot of liveries. They also do tin cans. They also do containers. They do a lot of fun stuff, and they do a lot of collaborations with a lot of different companies. They do imports, exotics. Some of them have accessories in them. Some of them come in window displays like this. But Tarmac, prices typically range anywhere between $15 to $22. And they've got some pretty cool stuff lined up for this year. Can't wait to see what those are going to look like in person. Definitely a cool brand for the price range. And if you're interested in some of the setups that they do, definitely a brand to look into. Next up, we have TomyTec. TomyTec bringing in a lot of variety to their game when it comes to makes and models. However, they actually only specialize in a lot of OE type of setups, so they're not doing any type of crazy aftermarket styling and aftermarket wheels and things like that. But super nicely detailed, die-cast, metal bodies. Price ranges are typically going to be within the 28 to 32 range. When you get into this bigger stuff here, it's gonna get into the $150s to the $200 range, but a lot of nostalgic 70s, 80s, 90s type vehicles. And as you can see here, we've got Cedric's, old school style. The wheels roll, and they do have working suspension. So when it comes to 64, you want something that's true 64, true to the styling of that make and model, then TomyTec is gonna be an awesome choice. Next up, we have Hobby Japan. Hobby Japan, the name probably says it all, but these guys specialize in a lot of Japanese 90s, old school, new school, and a lot of their stuff is going to be OE setups, a variety of colors. However, they've been doing cool things like adding in accessories such as engines. Some of their new lineup stuff for this year is going to be including a lot of initial D setups, a lot of aftermarket tidbits with spoilers, wings, and wheels. Stay tuned for that because Hobby Japan definitely bringing in some crazy stuff. Metal body, price range is typically anywhere between $22 to $25, but you get some nice detail, nice cool little extras, and definitely a supporter of Japanese classics and the array of colors that they offer and details. So if you're into that, Hobby Japan, definitely one for you to look at. Next up, we have One Model. Oh, One Model doesn't really produce too many 64 scales, but they are getting into the game of 64 scale. They've done a few EG6s, as you can see here. So I think they're sticking with a lot of old school Japanese 90s, 2000s type setups with maybe some aftermarket stuff attached to it. In this case, they've got the Rocket Bunny kit, but they're also specialized in a lot of the resin model cars, such as the Resin S2000. They also have a couple of FD2s, but can't wait to see what One Model does with 64. They primarily were an 18 and 43 scale brand, but moving on to the 64 line. So aftermarket setups, diecast anywhere between $28 to $32, and the resins are gonna be anywhere between 55 to 60 a pop. You get some super high quality detail with those resin models, so no worries there. So if you're a true Honda fan, then maybe One Model is another brand for you to look at because primarily that's all that they've been coming out with when it comes to 64 scale model cars. And last but not least, we have Peako models. Peako models, they're doing a lot of JDM 90s stuff, such as the MR2, which is their newest line. They've also got cool things like trucks, such as this. This is an aftermarket truck. You can actually carry cars in it and things like that. So they've got some cool things like that. And another line that they've also been doing a lot of is the Evo line. And this is gonna be the Lancer that has fully detachable bumper, wheels, engine bay, and everything in between. You can literally take this whole thing apart. Peako model is definitely getting into the makes and models that are a little bit more rare or a little bit more harder to find. Things like this, anywhere between 30 to 35 bucks. Trucks are anywhere between $40 to $50. Things like this that are fully detachable, you're looking at around the 55, 60 range. Metal bodies, die-cast, aftermarket OE setups, as you can see here, but definitely an up and coming brand. They got a lot of stuff in store for 2022. So let's see what they come up with. A lot of different brands and a lot of different options. And I can't wait to see what other types of variants these brands come out with throughout the year. But question of the day, which of these brands that I mentioned best fit your style? If you enjoyed this video, check out my other videos in the next slide. I will see you in those videos or my next video.